Hi, everyone. It's Peggy again. Saturday, 3 p.m. Pacific. Once again, been doing this for over a year now. First, did Heinz Feet on High Places, and that's still on Facebook and YouTube. You can go listen to those anytime. Turn my phone off. And then after that, I read Mountains of Spices, which is the sequel to that book, to those books by Hannah Hurnard. And then what did I do? I'm trying to remember if I went to A Tale of Three Kings. My memory. Well, anyway, today we're going to do we're going to continue with A Tale of Three Kings by Jean Edwards. And today it's a cold, rainy day in August, if you can believe it, here in Washington. I was so looking forward to this whole week being nice and dry and warm, hot even, but no. So I'm still hoping, I'm praying for a nice September like we had last year. And even into October, we had very nice warm weather. So, and my garden isn't doing as well as it has in previous years. My cucumbers, for some reason, they got some kind of a wilt, and they just halfway through their growth, they just wilted. And I've read on the internet that other people are having that issue too. So hopefully next year I can avoid that. And then the same happened to my acorn squash, that was my greatest hope. I always love to grow as many acorn squash as I can. But the spaghetti squash is still growing though. I've got lots of lettuce and greens, which I'm probably going to give away. And then green beans, of course. This is the season for the green beans. That's what I had for lunch. So this is about halfway through, I would say. And we had been reading first about the relationship between Saul and David, King Saul and David, and then comes to go on a few years, and it's King David. And then David has a son. He had Rehoboam, but he also had Absalom at that time. And so we're just getting to know Absalom a little bit, about how he's kind of worming his way into the people's good graces. Of course, this is like a play, it's not necessarily how everything happened, but who knows? It could have happened this way. It very well could have. But we look at this book as kind of a play, like we're sitting back and watching the characters, and then we identify with the characters, and we even identify with Absalom, believe it or not. And that's where all the people that read this book, they just go, oh yes. People say they read it every year. I can see why they do. It really makes you look at your own heart. So it's a good thing, right? Yeah. And God is for us. He's not against us. So some of these difficult questions, they're meant to help us. They're meant to help us grow and get rid of the things that bind us, right? Yes. So let's begin. I think I'll go back to a little bit about men who go after the Sauls among us. Of course, this is men or women, but it says here, men who go after Sauls among us often crucify the Davids among us. So in other words, one person will think, oh, that's a Saul. This leader is a Saul. I must do something about it or leave. And then the next person right next to them will say, no, that's a David. That's God's chosen one. So it's hard to know. We have to trust the Lord, and time will tell. Time will expose other people and our own selves. Yes. So let's see what else we have going today here. Who then can know who is a David and who's a Saul? It says God knows, but he won't tell. Are you so certain your king is a Saul and not a David, that you're willing to take the position of God and go to war against that Saul, against your Saul? If so, then thank God you didn't live in the days of crucifixion. What then can you do? Very little. Perhaps nothing. However, the passing of time, this is what I was just saying, the passage of time and the behavior of your leader while that time passes reveals a great deal about your leader. And the passing of time and the way you react to that leader, be he David or Saul, reveals a great deal about you. Just strikes your heart, doesn't it? And so let's continue. 2 generations after the reign of Saul, a young man enthusiastically enrolled himself into the ranks of Israel's army under a new king, the grandson of David. He soon began hearing tales of David's mighty men of valor. He set out to discover if one of those mighty men might still be alive, and if so, to find him and talk to him, though he calculated that such a man would be over 100 years of age. I think I'll skip ahead a little bit because we read this before, but it's good to review some of it. So this young man is asking one of David's mighty men, who's very old now, things about David. And he says, the old man says, I'll tell you of my king and his greatness. My king never threatened me as yours does. Your new king has begun his reign with laws, rules, regulations, and fear. The clearest memory I have of my king when we lived in the caves is that his was a life of submission. Yes, David showed me submission, not authority. He taught me not the quick cure of rules and laws, but the art of patience. That is what changed my life. Legalism is nothing but a leader's way of avoiding suffering. Rules were invented by elders so that they could get to bed early. Men who speak endlessly on authority only prove they have none. And kings who make speeches about submission only betray twin fears in their hearts. They're not certain they're really true leaders, sent of God. And they live in mortal fear of a rebellion. My king spoke not of submitting to him. He feared no rebellion because he didn't mind if he was dethroned. David taught me losing, not winning, giving, not taking. He showed me that the leader, not the follower, is inconvenienced. David shielded us from suffering. He didn't give it out. He taught me that authority yields to rebellion, especially when that rebellion is nothing more dangerous than immaturity or perhaps stupidity. The old man was obviously remembering some very tense and perhaps humorous episodes in the caves. No, he said now in a low voice, with a touch of eloquence. Authority from God is not afraid of challengers, makes no defense, and cares not one whit if it must be dethroned. That was the greatness of the great, of the true king. The old man began to walk away. Both anger and regal patience were evident in his bearing as he turned. Then he faced the youth once more, thundering one last time. As far as David's having authority, men who don't have it talk about it all the time. Submit, submit. That's all you hear. David had authority, but I don't think that fact ever occurred to him. We were 600 no-goods with a leader who cried a lot. That's all we were. Those were the last words the young soldier heard from the old warrior. Slipping back into the street, he wondered if he would ever again be happy serving under Rehoboam. And here's the last chapter of this section. So, having come to the end of our study of Saul and David, do you feel greatly assisted? What's that? You're now certain the man you are under is not truly from God? Or if he is at best only a Saul? My, how certain we mortals can be of things even angels do not know. May I ask you then, what you plan to do with this newly acquired knowledge? Yes, I'm aware that you yourself are neither a Saul nor a David, but only a peasant of the realm. You do plan, though, to share your new discoveries with a few friends? I see. Then perhaps I should warn you that there is a great danger with this heady new knowledge of yours. A strange mutation can take place within your own heart. You see, it is possible. But wait. What is it I see over there in the distant mist behind you? Turn. Do you see? Who is that figure making his way through the fog? It seems I've surely seen him before. Look closely. Is it not possible for us to make out what he's doing? He appears to be bending over some ancient chest. Yes, he's opened it. Who is he and what's he doing? He has taken something out of the chest. A cloak? It's some kind of a cape. Why, he's putting it on. The thing fits him perfectly, falling about his shoulders like a mantle. Now what? He reaches again into that chest. I know I've seen that person somewhere before. What is it he pulls forth this time? A shield? No, a coat of arms. Yes, a coat of arms from some ancient, long-forgotten order. He holds it up as one who would make that order his own. Who is that man? The bearing, the stance, the carriage. I've seen it before, I'm sure. Ah, he has moved out of the mist into the light. We will see him clearly now. That face, is it not you? Yes, it is. It is you. You who can so wisely discern the presence of an unworthy Saul. Go, look in your mirror. That man is you. Look, too, at the name upon that coat of arms. behold Absalom the second. So in this play, it's having us look into the mirror ourselves and ask ourselves, have we ever been like that? Are we like that now? What's in the treasure chest of our own hearts? We must be very careful what we allow to come into the treasure chest of our hearts. No accusations against what we perceive as a Saul, a poor leader, because we don't know. We may see a snippet. Every person is not perfect. No one is perfect. But we mustn't make a judgment like that, because we could very well be crucifying a David. We very well could be taking the place of a Saul ourselves, or now in this next portion of the book, an Absalom. So this is the second part of the book. Look, here comes David. Bright smiles, a few giggles, some light laughter. See, it's David, no less. Again, wide grins, a wave, and quiet amusement. That isn't King David, exclaimed a youth to his guardian as the two walked along the side of the street. Why do they speak that way? That man is not David. True, child, it's not David. It's only Absalom coming from the gate. Why do they call him David? The boy asked, looking back over his shoulder at the handsome man in the chariot with 50 men running before him. Because he reminds us all of David when he was young. And because we are all so glad that such a fine young man will take David's place someday. And perhaps, too, because Absalom is even better looking than David, he may be the most handsome man alive. You see, that's how the people chose. Well, God chose Saul. He was the chosen one. He was anointed. But he gave them what they wanted. And Saul was that way. Saul was tall and handsome, the kind of man we would choose in our flesh. The kind of quail we would ask for when we're hungry. The kind that would be given to us so much that we vomit it. We ask the Lord for something, and sometimes he gives us what we ask for. Will Absalom be king soon? Says the boy. How old is King David anyway? Is he about to die? Of course not, my boy. Let's see. How old is David? Probably about the same age as King Saul was when his reign came to an end. How old is Absalom? About the same age as David was when Saul was trying so hard to kill him. David is Saul's age. Absalom is the age of David when he first became king, mused the boy. They walked on silently for a while. The boy, obviously deep in thought, spoke again. Saul was very hard on David, was he not? Yes, very. Is King David going to treat Absalom the same way Saul treated David? Will David be hard on Absalom? The guardian paused to consider the question, but the child went on. If David treats Absalom badly, will Absalom behave with as much grace as David did? Oh, child, the future will surely tell us. My, you ask such questions. If, when you're grown, you can give answers as well as you now ask questions, you will surely be known as the wisest man on earth. The two turned in at the palace gate. I think that was Solomon, is the boy. It warmed your heart to know a man who saw things so clearly. Discerning. Yes, that was the word that best described Absalom. Discerning. He could penetrate to the heart of any problem. Men felt secure just being with him. They even longed to have time with him. Talking with him, they realized that they themselves were wiser than they realized. Such a revelation made them feel good. As he discussed problem after problem and solution after solution, men began to long for the day when this one would be their leader. He gave them a sense of hope. But this imposing, insightful man would never deliberately hasten the day of his own rule. They were confident of that. He was far too humble, too respectful of his father. And those around him began to feel a little frustrated that they would have to keep waiting for the better days of this man's rule. The more they sat in his living room and talked, the more they realized that things were amiss in the kingdom. Yes, things amiss that they had never thought of before. And problems were coming to light of which they had never dreamed. Yes, they were really growing in wisdom and insight. As the days passed, more and more of them came to listen. Word spread quietly. Here is one who understands and has the answers. The frustrated came. They listened. They asked questions. They received excellent answers and began to hope. Heads nodded. Dreams were born. As time passed, there were more such gatherings. Ideas turned into stories, stories of injustice that others might have deemed trivial, but not this listener. He was compassionate, and as those around him talked, the discovered injustices seemed to grow in number and severity. With each new story, men were more shocked at unfairness that was now, it seemed, rampant. See, these things are being conjured up, all this unfairness and things that were wrong. There's always wrong things going on. Do you do the right thing every time? I don't. But the wise young man sat quietly and added not a word to these murmurings. He was too noble, you see. He always closed the evening conversations with a humble word of deference toward those in positions of responsibility. But it was too much to expect that any man could sit quietly by forever. This endless parade of injustice was bound to stir even the most respectful man. Even the purest in heart would be smitten with anger. And this man was certainly the very purest in heart. Such a compassionate man could not forever turn his face from these sufferings, nor forever remain silent. Remember, David suffered. That was one of the things he learned, how to be patient, how to be broken and not throw a spear. Such a noble character as this had to speak out someday. Finally, his followers, which he vowed he did not have, were almost livid. Their insights into the wrongdoings of the kingdom not only grew but abounded. They all wanted to do something about these endless injustices. See, if you look for injustices, if you look for things that are not fair, you're going to find them. If that's how you spend your life, it's a waste. At last, it seemed the magnificent young man might concede. At the outset, it was only a word, later a sentence. Men's hearts leaped. Joy, if not glee, reigned. Nobility was at last being aroused to action. But no, he cautioned them not to misunderstand. He was grieved. Yes, he could not speak against those in seats of responsibility. No, absolutely not. No matter how great the grievances, no matter how justified the frustration, he would not. But he's stirring them up to do it, you see. Yet he grieved more and more. It was obvious that some reports drove him to agony. Finally, his righteous anger broke out in cool, controlled words of strength. These things ought not to be. He stood, eyes blazing. If I were in responsibility, this is what I would do. And with these words, the rebellion was ignited. Ignited in all but one, that is. In the man who seemed noblest and purest. This was not the case. Rebellion had been in his heart for years. See, it was just waiting to come out. And he was very subtle about it. Some things never change. And the book goes on. Sage, yes? Sage, may I have a moment of your time? Why, of course. I have a great deal of time. You have just come from a gathering of friends at Absalom's home? Yes, that's correct. Would you mind sharing some of the impressions you had while there? You mean a general impression of Absalom and his friends? Yes, that would be good enough. Well, I've met many men like Absalom. Many. Then what is he like? He is both sincere and ambitious. A contradiction perhaps, but true nonetheless. He probably means some of what he says, but his ambition will continue long after he discovers his inability to do the things he promises. Boy, that hits home for the day that we live in. Politics. I'll read it again. He is both sincere and ambitious, a contradiction perhaps, but true nonetheless. He probably means some of what he says, but his ambition will continue long after he discovers his inability to do the things he promises. Righting the wrongs always becomes secondary to the ascent to power. I'm sorry, Sage, I don't understand. Two things stand out in my mind. At one gathering, when Absalom was answering questions, he was very emphatic that there should be more freedom in the kingdom. Everyone liked that. A people should be led only by God and not by men, he said. Men should do only what they feel led of God to do. We should follow God, not a man. I believe those were his words. Now you see, the words don't sound bad, But when you really think about it, do what each man feels that they should do. Of course, we should do what we feel God wants us to do. But this is describing anarchy, every man doing what they want. No consideration for the others, no consideration for the boundaries, which are there to protect, not imprison. At another meeting, he spoke of the great visions he had for God's kingdom, of the great achievements the people were capable of. On the other hand, he spoke of many changes he would make in the way of the kingdom is run. Although he did not seem to notice it, he had started two irreconcilable propositions, many changes, and more freedom. Yes, indeed, he does remind me of many other men I've encountered over the passing years. Sage, I think I understand what you've said, but I'm not sure what your point is. Absalom dreams of what should be, of what will be. This is what I will do, he says. But to fulfill those dreams, he must have the people's cooperation. This is the point often overlooked. Such dreams rest totally on the premise that the people of God will follow the new leader, that all will see as he sees. Such men as Absalom can envision no problems in their own future kingdom. Possibly the people will follow, but possibly they will not. At most, the Lord's people will follow a leader for a few years. They never support anyone very long. Generally, people do what they please. They can be stopped to do someone else's pleasure for a time, but not for long. People will not work too hard, even if they're following God. Boy, that's quite a paragraph. What will Absalom do when people stop following him willingly? Now there is a question. You see, there is no kingdom without discord. Even God had his critics in heaven, you know. All kingdoms follow a bumpy course, and people, especially God's people, never follow any dream in unison. No, to accomplish all he spoke of tonight will take time. Not all will be willing to go along. Will he still be determined to put all his dreams into being? If so, then Absalom has but one recourse: dictatorship. Either that, or he will see few, if any, of his grand dreams accomplished. And if he does become a dictator, I can assure you that soon there will be discontent with him, just as there is now with the present king. Yes, if Absalom becomes king, soon thereafter you will see new meetings like the one we have just come from tonight, only with new faces, new dreams, and plans for a new rebellion. And that gathering will be against Absalom. Then, when Absalom hears of such a meeting and of discussion about a rebellion, he will have but one recourse. What do you feel he will do, Sage? Rebels who ascend to the throne by rebellion have no patience with other rebels and their rebellions. When Absalom is faced with rebellion, he will become a tyrant. He will bring 10 times the evil he sees in your present king. He will squelch rebellion and rule with an iron hand, and by fear. He will eliminate all opposition. This is always the final stage of high-sounding rebellions. Such will be Absalom's way if he takes the throne from David. If anyone wants to chat, you can just hit the chat button and hopefully I'll see it and answer it. You can say hello or ask a question, comment. So to continue, but sage, have not some rebellions been of benefit, throwing out brutes and despots? Yes, a few. But I remind you, this particular kingdom is different from all others. This kingdom is composed of God's people. It's a spiritual kingdom. I tell you emphatically, no rebellion in the kingdom of God is proper, nor can it ever be fully blessed. You see, he started out in rebellion. Rebellion was in his heart his whole life, is what David came to the conclusion of. And finally, when the time was right, he let it bloom, he let it out, but it can never be blessed. It can never be like David's kingdom. Because David was brokenness, patience, suffering. He wouldn't come against an evil king who was the anointed of God. He respected authority. So no rebellion in the kingdom of God is proper, nor can it ever be fully blessed. Why do you say this, sage? For many reasons. One is obvious. In the spiritual realm, those who lead rebellions have already proven, no matter how grandiose their words or angelic their ways, that they have a critical nature, an unprincipled character, and hidden motives in their hearts. Frankly, they're thieves. They create dissatisfaction and tension within the realm, and then either seize power or siphon off followers. They use their followers to found their own dominions. Such a sorry beginning built on the foundation of insurrection. No, God never honors division in his realm. I find it curious that those who feel qualified to split God's kingdom do not feel capable of going somewhere else, to another land, to raise up a completely new kingdom. No, they must steal from another leader. I have never seen the exception. They seem always to need at least a few prepackaged followers. Beginning empty-handed and alone frightens the best of men. It also speaks volumes of just how sure they are that God is with them. Their every word, if truly understood, tells of their insecurity. So listen when people speak. What's in the heart is going to come out. And it'll come out in their words. There are many lands unspoiled and unpossessed. There are many people in other places waiting to follow a true king, a true man of God. Why don't would-be kings and prophets simply walk quietly away alone, then find another people in another place, and there raise up the kingdom they envision? Those who lead rebellions in the spiritual world are unworthy. There are no exceptions. And now I must go. I must join the passing parade. Tell me, Sage, what's your name? My name? I am history. I know I'm rereading some of this just to kind of, I don't know why, but I wanted to. I may skip a portion about David and Joab, David and Abishai. I'll skip a few pages here. So this is David talking to either Abishai or Joab. Let us see which one he's talking to. Abishai. I'm reading all the little things that I had written in the margins. Wow, this is cool what David says. Dear king, said Abishai, Saul was a bad king. Absalom is in some ways a youthful incarnation of Saul. You alone are constant. You're forever the broken-hearted shepherd boy. Tell me truthfully, what do you plan? Until now, I've not been sure. But of this I am certain. In my youth I was no Absalom, and in my old age I shall not be a Saul. In my old age I intend to be David still, even if it costs me a throne, a kingdom, and perhaps my head. Abishai said nothing for a while, and then slowly he spoke, making sure he grasped the significance of David's decision. You are not an Absalom, and you refuse to be a Saul. Sir, if you're not willing to put Absalom down, then I suggest we prepare to evacuate the kingdom, for Absalom will surely take the throne. Only as surely as King Saul killed the shepherd boy, replied the wise old king. What? What? Added Abishai, startled. Think on it, Abishai. God once delivered a defenseless shepherd boy from the powerful mad king. He can yet deliver an old ruler from an ambitious young rebel. You underestimate your adversary, retorted Abishai. You underestimate my God, replied David serenely. But why, David? Why not fight? I'll give you the answer, and you will recall, for you were there, that I once gave this same answer to Joab in a cave long ago. It's better that I be defeated and even killed than to learn the ways of a Saul or the ways of an Absalom. The kingdom is not that valuable. And let him have it if that be the Lord's will. I repeat, I shall not learn the ways of either Saul or Absalom. And now, being an old man, I will add a word I might not have known then. Abishai, no man knows his own heart. I certainly do not know mine. Only God does. Shall I defend my little realm in the name of God? Shall I throw spears and plot and divide and kill men's spirits, if not their bodies, to protect my empire? I didn't lift a finger to be made king, nor shall I do so to preserve a kingdom, even the kingdom of God. God put me here. It's not my responsibility to take or keep authority. Do you not realize it may be His will for these things to take place? If he chooses, God can protect and keep the kingdom even now. After all, it's his kingdom. As I said, no man knows his own heart, and I don't know mine. Who knows what is really in my heart? Perhaps in God's eyes, I'm no longer worthy to rule. Perhaps he is through with me. Perhaps it is his will for Absalom to rule. I honestly don't know. And if this is his will, I want it. God may be finished with me. Any young rebel who raises his hand against a Saul, or any old king who raises his hand against an Absalom, may in truth be raising his hand against the will of God. In either case, I shall raise no hand. Wouldn't I look a little strange trying to stay in control if God desires that I fall? But you know that Absalom should not be king, replied Abishai in frustration. Do I? No man knows. Because look, he put Saul in as king, right? Only God knows, and he's not spoken. I didn't fight to be king, and I won't fight to remain king. May God come tonight and take the throne, the kingship, and... David's voice faltered, and his anointing from me. I seek his will, not his power. I repeat, I desire his will more than I desire a position of leadership. He may be through with me. King David? A voice came from behind the two of them. Oh, yes, a messenger. What is it? Absalom. He wishes to see you a moment. He wants to ask permission to go to Hebron to make a sacrifice. David, said Abishai hoarsely, you know what that really means, don't you? Yes, I do. David turned to the messenger. Tell Absalom I will be there in a moment. David looked one last time at the quiet city below and then turned and walked toward the door. Will you let him go to Hebron? Abishai demanded. I will, said the great king. Yes, I will. Then he turned to the messenger. This is a dark hour for me. When I have finished speaking to Absalom, I shall retire. Tomorrow have one of the prophets come to me for consultation, or a scribe. On second thought, send me Zadok the high priest. Ask him to join me here after the evening sacrifice. Abishai called out once more, softly this time. Admiration flashed across his face. Good king, thank you. For what? The puzzled king asked as he turned back in the doorway. Not for what you've done, but for what you have not done. Thank you for not throwing spears, for not rebelling against kings, for not exposing a man in authority when he was so very vulnerable, for not dividing a kingdom, and for not attacking young Absaloms who look like young Davids but are not. He paused. And thank you for suffering, for being willing to lose everything. Thank you for giving God a free hand to end and even destroy your kingdom if it pleases him. Thank you for being an example to us all. And most of all, he chuckled. Thank you for not consulting witches. That's what Saul used to do. Well, this week I kind of read most of what I did last week. I think maybe the Lord just wants it to sink in my own heart, you know? Who knows? Or maybe someone that will listen to this at some point. It may help them. Yes. To be a David, like a David. But each one of us is a precious, precious soul. And God has fashioned us for a purpose, a specific purpose, each of us. And we will do it because God is for us. But let us do it with the heart of David, not a heart of Saul or of Absalom. Don't grasp things too tightly. Receive them from God with open hands and not claim them for ourselves. Well, I'm getting a little hoarse, aren't I? Yeah, pray for me. My voice, my vocal cords were injured in a procedure I had to open up my esophagus. Pray for my singing voice to come back, and I'll sing for you. I probably won't, but I love to sing at home. I grew up as a girl. I was supposed to be a music teacher. Started very early in my elementary years, and was very very blessed through my high school years and into college with being in the music program. So I would love to sing again. I don't care about playing the clarinet again, though, or the piano. I'm the only one that thinks I'm funny, right? Well, I will say goodbye for now, and if anyone wants to put a question afterwards or a comment, please feel free. And I hope to see some of you next week, 3 p.m. on Saturday, Pacific time. And if anyone would like to give to my ministry, I'll put the ways you can do that in the comments. Thanks. Goodbye, everybody. Love you.